Shalom. Excuse my coughing, and I cough again. Well, I'll have to start the video again. This is thank you, Mother. This is a video for the Davos gathering. My name is Yeshua Yaakov ben Abraham. I live in Jerusalem, and I'm formerly Michael F. O'Donnell. And before I wore the kippah, I'm getting a little bald there, I was a servant to kings and rulers, so I'm familiar with the clientele that is at Davos. But that's not why I'm making this video. So let me move on very quickly and come to the idea that will make the world a better place in 2008. Specifically, Humanomics. The trilogy of Humanomics combines two paradigms: receive it to give and the integration of labor. The first being the new cognitive science first principle, and the second being the new economic paradigm, and the author of both. That in 35 agarot in Israel will get you a pack of gum. But outside of Israel, there's a different world, a different perception. Now, let me say something very revolutionary and not something you will hear or have heard. I live in Jerusalem. I live in Israel in general and Jerusalem in particular. The problem of man and mankind through my 40 years as a scientist doing basic and applied research in 18 disciplines convinced me that the problem was exile and the solution was redemption. These are terms from the Bible and the Torah. That said, the problem 20 years later, after living in Israel for 22 years, the problem is no longer exile. It is now denial of the end of exile. Wow, exile. Man and mankind is no longer in exile? Wow, that's good news. Could you please tell me, what's this all about? Quickly and to the point, something that is not well known is, I'll use an analogy from physics, the quantum reality and the local reality. The central organizing principle of man and mankind in exile was giving to receive. That is the local reality. It collapsed. It collapsed beginning in Russia on December 25th, 1991, and subsequently on 1995, on November 5th, in Israel, in New York on 9/11, and confirmed to the world on December 26, 2004. The grammars are all the same. The end of exile, it's not an option, and we have to move on and inhabit the quantum reality, which is the new central organizing principle of Humanomics. What is Humanomics? Humanomics is the East-West convergence model of the post-collapse of ground zero around the world. I've told you where it's happened first in Russia, in Israel, in America. It's going to spread around the world. Okay, that said, what do we do about it? We implement Humanomics through its 4 programs. What you need to know is that what we can do in 2008 is brand Humanomics and educate the world of the collapse of the local reality, of the end of man and mankind's exile, and the grammars by which we can come to understand its meaning and act to improve the conditions in a lot of mankind in a very different than a new world. Of course, there is an enormously complex process of development and implementation to solve the problems of the Malthusian problems of the shortage of food supply in the world. Bill and Warren are doing a fantastic job. When Warren was here, we talked about that. After he bought Issachar from Steph Wertheimer, he may, in fact, Steph might be with you, one of your attendees at Davos. Many of the people, or I should say not many, but a lot of the people who would be going to Davos over the years I have known, but in the last 22 years that I'm living in Israel, I've not been in touch with most of them, having once been a servant of kings and rulers. Anyway, let's sum up. I'm the author of Humanomics, the trilogy Humanomics, and the first volume articulates the new framework and the post-collapse of the local reality globally that ends man and man's exile. And volume 2 is Humanomics' central organizing principle, which is receive and to give, which is what replaces the collapsed local reality that was giving to receive. And lastly, the third volume of the trilogy is the integration of labor, which is the new economic paradigm, the integration of labor, that identifies information in classical terms as its new agent of transformation, more specifically as world-class new global technological infrastructure through the normal processes which will most likely devolve for becoming Internet 3. Less a lot of the balloons that are floating about in the world to try to claim authorship of what it should look like. That said, we had George Bush here yesterday and today, and we'll have him here tomorrow. He's a well-intended, a very decent, honorable man, trying to do his very best to help the people here in the region to make peace. He should have had a briefing of what this video is actually giving over, but he has not. And so to instruct Israel to not look outside of itself for ideas, leadership, and content, I received to announce the trilogy and the writing of the trilogy Humanomics yesterday, and did and posted that announcement on YouTube under the rubric, or I should say title, not rubric, but title of Are You Inhabiting Your Authentic Self? You can find it on this address as well. Having said all that I've said, there are many questions about, for example, the new cognitive science paradigm, receiving to give. What does it mean? Receiving what? Well, it means receiving your authentic self, because in exile, the klipa is a psychological manifestation of man's mind that blinds us to the authentic bigger self. That means our real identity, and that's the local reality that collapsed. And the grammar of that event as divine intervention was none less than 9/11. Now, I admit that the official narrative of 9/11 is very different. It's these terrible people, and they weren't very nice people who went and hijacked the planes and crashed them into the buildings and in Pennsylvania and into the Pentagon. But in historic terms, the meta-narrative will turn out to have historic implications of very, very great significance that expresses the grammar of the end of exile. And the science and the technology underlying this is complex, and it's not for a video. This video has introduced basically the idea that in 2008 we have to end the denial of the end of man's exile and deconstruct ground zero, and within ourselves, our lives, and deprogram the mind of man and mankind that was exile from our authentic selves and from the Creator, regardless of our particular religion. Having said all of that, that's the idea that I think will most impact man and mankind and make the world a very much better place and get us moving forward in 2008. And lastly, I want to, as a personal note, I want to thank Bill Gates, if he's there, and if not, and Melinda for the Gates Foundation and their tremendous job that they're doing, and my friend Warren, who followed Bill's superb example and blessed them for the tremendous, responsible, cognitive, conscious act